Okay, good morning. My name is Bob Stoddard. I'm a principal researcher in the Software Solutions Division. And this morning I'd like to share with you the results of a multi-year research project into cost estimation. But I'd first like to highlight that the title of our project is definitely distinguishing what we're looking at. And it's been a misnomer that we've been fighting for like 3 years. And that is that we're called Quantifying Uncertainty in Early Lifecycle Cost Estimation. We are not attempting to reinvent decades of cost estimating machinery, which a lot of people in the cost estimation world presumed. And you'll see that we're intending to have this solution be a front-end plug-and-play to the existing machinery that exists today, and you'll see why. So going back several years when we first started this project, some of the data that highlighted the problem is exampled in this study here from 2009, where it was confirming a continued theme that cost estimation is the primary dominant reason given for DoD program cost overruns, and a number of other studies that we had, including the cost impacts and everything. We have that data as well. But more importantly, the impetus for this project was the 2009 WSERA Act, which for the first time required early life cycle cost estimation in the acquisition life cycle that you see here prior to milestone A. So you'll see that there's milestone A, B, and C. A is so early in the process that you really just have analysis of alternatives going on, and you really don't even have a program identified and a program staffed and a program commenced. And at that point, they were now asking for cost estimates, and not only cost estimates, but estimates with a confidence level and a rationale if you were not above 80% confidence. So subsequently to that act, it was amended, and I believe the confidence is still required, but the justification on why you might be below 80% was removed. So anyway, the two immediate challenges that came out of that WSERA Act that we saw was that there was a very apparent mismatch between the information available that early in the acquisition life cycle and the traditional inputs to cost estimation machinery, cost estimation tools. And so something was going to have to be done very innovative, thinking out of the box to handle that. The second thing we saw was that the ongoing lack of transparency was going to be a magnified problem that early in the life cycle, because the information is much more subjective and needing to be understood and modeled. And so those two challenges were what caused us to sit down as a team and try to think out of the box and look at what are the techniques that could address that kind of information that early in life cycle. The primary technique that we saw came out of the scenario planning workshop world as popularized by a number of companies in the United States. And we saw an opportunity to take scenario planning workshops and have experts, a variety of experts, and not just cost analysts, consider and brainstorm what are the sources of uncertainty that a program will run into during its lifetime. And we wanted to then have that sources of uncertainty, we call them change drivers, then potentially be modeled and then understood, and then reason in towards the changing the distribution and values of the input parameters of the existing cost estimation machinery. So on this slide here, we're showing you that we definitely want to deal with that transparency issue and encompass a lot of information way beyond what existing cost estimation tools encompass. And it actually makes a traditional cost analyst very uncomfortable when we talk about this. I'd like to just highlight also that we've been like a 3 to 4 year journey on this estimation, and we haven't had our head totally in the work and not paying attention to the changing DoD needs. And so I'd like to just highlight that even this year, there's now a new evolved need in the DoD space related to cost estimation. There is a desire to have capability trade-offs done in context of cost. And the primary recommendation that we've just seen recently here is a use of what I consider to be a simple method of multi-attribute decision model. But I'd like to say happily that our QUELCE solution that you'll see has a probabilistic modeling capability that would give a far richer ability to do capability trade-offs. So in one slide, sorry it's a busy slide, highlighting the 5 steps of the QUELCE solution across the top. The first 2 steps are a different color because that's where we're trying to contain the explosion of information that we get during the discussions with the experts. And then the other 3 downstream are modeling type steps. So in the bottom, in the pictorial, we start off with a workshop with experts, and we structure the discussion and have them anticipate what are the sources, the likely sources of change to this program. And we have found that expert judgment is a very important thing, and we need to inform that expert judgment. So you'll see that when they do that workshop, they have the ability to query a repository of structured information from historical program experiences. And you'll see also that we've developed a calibration training and testing for experts, and we prefer that they be calibrated before they exert their judgment in our workshop. So on number 1 there, once they create that driver state matrix, they'll then go into another team exercise where we actually look at the one-on-one expected relationships between change drivers. We believe there will be a cascading effect of these change drivers. And that's the strength of this method compared to traditional estimation. There's no notion of scenarios with a cascading effect of negative events. In step 3, we then take that information from the dependency structure matrix. We remove the cycles in that matrix, and we create a Bayesian Belief Network. And then we're able to model scenarios in that network. And for each scenario, we then connect nodes in this network with the input parameters of existing machinery. And we're providing inputs based on a distribution, no longer a single value. So prior to FY15, a lot of work was done. I'll admit that we had to do a lot of socialization to reduce the resistance in the cost estimation community that we were reinventing their work. And we also had to do some exploratory work to find out, hey, could we reach a taxonomy of change drivers that would be useful in future workshops? And so that was a lot of the work prior to FY15. For FY15, some of the 4 key areas that we've had work in, 2 of them are still in work through the end of this year, regretfully due to a very late approval for fundamental research and our continuing pursuit of human subject research approval. Major portions of the project are running through the end of this year. But we basically identified new change drivers, and I'll talk more about that, and we conducted some agreement exercises with experts. We expanded the taxonomy as a result. We did achieve both a DoD use of QUELCE and 1 defense contractor use of QUELCE. I'll talk more about the machine learning mechanism that we seek to build, but just in a nutshell, we are learning about change drivers from reviewing a lot of textual artifacts from DoD program reporting, and that's a very manual intensive exercise. So it would be ideal if we had a machine learning mechanism that would let us on an ongoing basis in future years process a stream of artifacts and produce a living mechanism of frequency of occurrence of change drivers mapped to programs by their attributes. And so we're in the middle of that, and we have the Language Technology Institute at CMU involved in doing that work with a graduate student. And then the 4th item is the group expert judgment experiments I'll talk more about. But we previously had quantified the judgment error that individuals would give on yes or no, this change driver will occur in this program. And we did confirm that people tend to underestimate the likelihood of negative events and overestimate the likelihood of positive events. So our data confirms that. What we want to do this year is to finish group level judgment experiments that more reflect the reality of how the estimates are done at the program level and see if the group judgment error is as pronounced. And that will influence things about deployment and training and how, what programs need to do to adopt this. So just to highlight, we've identified approximately 20 additional drivers to put on our taxonomy for the sustainment and modernization activity. Because in our 2nd year of research, we realized very few programs were now needing pre-milestone A support, and a large amount of activity is going on in modernization and sustainment. And we capitalized on existing relationships with 3 Air Force sustainment centers. Went out and did intensive interviews and came up with 20 additional change drivers. Some of them are elaboration in more detail of existing change drivers in our taxonomy. And we think that's going to be a greater aid for the sustainment centers. We also then conducted a number of experiments with SEI staff, and we wanted to look at the reproducibility of recognizing these change drivers when you're coding the text. So we went and took the time to do experiments, attribute agreement experiments. We wanted to make sure there was decent agreement before we then use that data as a training set for the machine learning. So we ended up with like 1,800 highlighted change driver extracts across like 250 documents. In terms of usage of it from a validation standpoint, we did engage with a Space and Missile Command program. We were able to go on site and work with them. They were kind enough to let us be in some of their opening the kimono discussions, and we did identify 47 applicable change drivers from our original taxonomy and things that they added. And so regretfully, though, they had a lot of turmoil in their program, people coming and going, and TDY and everything like that. So we didn't get to finish the BBN modeling yet, which was my favorite part. So I'm still hoping that we'll achieve that. But the interesting thing is that the officers that were involved out there did admit that a majority of our 47 change drivers were not in the rationale that was previously provided to the CAPE. So we believe that's a great impact value. We did also see a dramatic learning curve in expert judgment calibration, far greater than we saw in our earlier conduct of that with a company in Texas. So we think that that's a definite opportunity. They were so impressed with the benefits of the expert judgment calibration, they asked for that to become a standalone SEI service. On the commercial defense contractor program, they were in the midst right now of doing a major program bid between now and the end of the year using QUELCE. They are very sensitive to having outsiders see their information. So far, we have not been approved to sit in their QUELCE workshops. And so I'm not sure what kind of quantitative information I'm going to get from them, but they are a good friend of the SEI in the defense contractor world. But they have shared the bottom statement here that their people are very informed through the discussion that's happening in the QUELCE workshop. And next to last, the machine learning part that's kicking on right now, going pretty good since early summer. 2 aspects of it. One is we started out this research several years ago with a commercial tool used by social science researchers to code documents and then tag it with a taxonomy code. And we found that limiting in several ways and also in terms of cost. And so in the past year, members of our team from the CERT organization have created a customized tool that allows anyone to highlight text and map it against our taxonomy. So it's called the Highlight Annotation tool. They're currently updating it. It's working quite well, and we believe it's going to open doors for other folks at DAU, the NPS area, even at program level, to have a web accessible link to this Highlight Annotation tool and help contribute to the community body of knowledge of structured information mapped to this taxonomy. So we have high hopes for that. We've also identified other projects in the SEI that will probably adopt the Highlight Annotation tool because, as you've seen just with John talking, there's coding going on of artifacts. The other aspect of machine learning that has just gotten underway is with the Language Technology Institute and a graduate student. They are adopting an architecture approach to the natural language processing and machine learning, similar to what CMU used on Watson. And so this architectural approach is supporting analysis at a word level, phrase, sentence, and paragraph level, and in a multivariate approach. So we have high hopes for that. They've had some promising, encouraging results already, and we're expecting a pretty nice demo in the Jordan Auditorium by the end of the year. And lastly, the group expert judgment experiments. We did due diligence in doing power analysis and identifying what kind of sample size we needed to do the different hypothesis tests from this type of experiment, to learn what's the benefit of having calibrated judgment training versus not, and the differences between individual versus group. And this is interesting to us, so we've identified the sample size we need. As soon as we have our Air Force approval, we're going to pull the trigger. I'm expecting we'll be doing these experiments in November and then writing it up in December. So we really are on the cusp of going from research into transition, and there's a lot of transition work ahead of us. So we are starting a little bit of early work on some transition artifacts between now and the end of the year, because my goal is starting in 2016, SEI could offer QUELCE as a service. And then maybe after a couple of years, we could maybe offer it as a product. We also want to establish a community of practice in a more formal way with the DoD cost community, with the DAU and the curriculum there, continuous learning modules, and then hosting an evolving repository for informing expert judgment. We also believe that another answer to having this adopted is to work with vendors and have a better connection between our tooling and automation and their tools. And in several cases, we already have vendors moving in that direction, so that's a good thing. We are going to pursue the standalone expert judgment as a service. A number of our clients are asking for that, even in the coming fiscal year. And lastly, one of our team members is also one of the lead experts working in the area of the security engineering risk analysis. And I've worked with him for a number of years. He's familiar with our BBN modeling, and we're very convinced there's a great opportunity and synergy to leverage what has been researched in the QUELCE solution with the SARA work. So that's very exciting. So in summary, we believe we have a novel solution. It's a package of a lot of component topics that have been proven for years. We're just using them in an integrated fashion and for a different type of purpose. And the impact right now, I wish I had more numbers to show, but we do believe that both in the DoD and the commercial side, there's going to be great value for this. We are going to be creating a website with different views into this based on whether you are commercial or if you do have a DoD type perspective. And I like to list the whole team here. And I haven't listed the CMU folks, so I feel bad about that.